The predators had never feared anything. Not the stars themselves, not the galaxies they had shattered, nor the countless civilizations they had consumed in their eternal hunt. For eons, they had been the apex predators of the cosmos, kings of the void, feared by all, and respected by none. Their eyes burned with the same cold fire as their endless conquests, and their claws were sharpened on the bones of their enemies. But when the stars aligned, and the ancient map of the galaxy revealed the location of a new target, something strange stirred in the heart of the hunters. Earth, a planet teeming with a primitive species, weak by their standards, fragile, undeveloped, and unaware of the cosmic storm that was about to consume them. They'd conquered countless worlds, taken down the mightiest beasts, and eradicated entire species who had dared challenge their reign. But Earth was different. Its humans were still confined to their small blue planet, oblivious to the predators lurking in the depths of space. They had never faced anything like the predators before, and they would learn their place, as all other species had. The predator fleet hovered in the void, cloaked and hidden from Earth's primitive detection systems. The Council of Hunters gathered on their mothership, a massive beast of a vessel, sleek and jagged like a blade in the darkness of space. At the head of the council was Var, the warlord of the Alpha Hunt, a towering figure with eyes that glowed with the fire of 1,000 kills. His species had once been rulers of a great empire, only to fall into the hands of the hunters. Yet they had adapted and evolved, becoming a part of the feared predator hierarchy. Earth, Var growled, his voice a low rumble. The perfect prey, weak, unprepared, and ripe for the taking. We will break them, as we have broken countless others. The council members, each a beast from a different corner of the galaxy, nodded in agreement. Their experience was vast, their bloodlust insatiable. They had consumed worlds without mercy. Yet there was something unsettling about Earth, something they couldn't quite place. One of the younger hunters, a creature known only as Zark, spoke up, his voice shaky. What if the humans are more dangerous than we believe? Their primitive technology, their primitive nature. Var's gaze locked on Zark, his eyes narrowing. You are weak. There is no species in the galaxy that can stand against us. Their technology will be useless against our might, and their primitive instincts will only make them more amusing to hunt. The room fell silent as the council members took in Var's words. The predators had never been wrong before, and Var's confidence was contagious. The plans were set. Earth would fall. The first wave of the assault was swift, designed to overwhelm humanity before they even knew what was happening. The predator ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, invisible to any detection systems. They landed in remote locations across the globe, stealthy, patient, and deadly. Within minutes, the first of the humans would be hunted. But something wasn't right. The hunters moved in, their heavy footfalls crushing the earth beneath them. They could sense no immediate threat, no sign of resistance. The humans were unaware, just as they had assumed. And yet, when the first predator set foot on the ground, it was met with an unexpected force. A trap, elaborate, deadly, and precise. The hunter's claws slashed out, but before he could land a blow, the ground beneath him gave way, and he plunged into an underground pit, disappearing into the darkness. From above, more predators were caught in the same trap, sharp metal spikes springing from the earth, deadly vines ensnaring their legs, and flashbangs that disoriented them long enough to turn the tide. The humans had been waiting. Var's pulse quickened as the reports flooded in. His warriors, the galaxy's deadliest predators, had never encountered anything like this before. Their shock turned to confusion, and then, for the first time, fear. These primitive humans weren't running. They weren't screaming in terror. They weren't even panicking. They were fighting back. He stared at the live feeds from the ground. His most feared hunters, caught in traps, overwhelmed by coordinated attacks, and cornered by humans who had somehow learned to exploit every weakness the predators had. This cannot be, Var muttered under his breath. They should be running. But the humans weren't running. They were killing. The first wave had failed. And the predators, for the first time in their long existence, were forced to confront a terrifying possibility. Earth was not like the others. As the predators regrouped and prepared to retaliate, a strange, unshakable feeling settled over them. A feeling that they had miscalculated. Earth was not just another world to conquer. It was something far more dangerous. And the hunt had only just begun. The first predator never saw it coming. He had descended into the dense forest near a human settlement. His hunting instincts honed after centuries of eliminating the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. His senses were heightened, every movement calculated. But there was something off, an unsettling stillness in the air. A low hum of energy rippled beneath the surface, but it was too late to process what it meant. As he stalked forward, ready to strike down anything foolish enough to stand in his way, the ground beneath him buckled, and the trap was sprung. Humanity had been waiting. For decades, Earth had been left to its own devices, their primitive technology an afterthought in the grand scale of galactic civilization. But humanity was more than just weak beings with basic tools. They were survivors, and in their struggle to climb out of the shadows of their past, they had learned how to become lethal when cornered. The predators were arrogant. They assumed Earth was just another planet to claim, and in doing so, they overlooked the one thing that made humans a threat: their capacity for innovation. In the shadows, a human soldier tightened his grip on the remote control. He had seen the predator fall into the trap, and with a satisfied nod, he activated the next sequence. Hidden underneath the Earth's surface, deep beneath the terrain the predators had so casually trodden upon, were thousands of carefully designed systems, traps crafted specifically to deal with an enemy like the predators. Nothing too advanced, nothing that couldn't be built in secret. It didn't need to be flashy. It didn't need to be complex. It just needed to be effective. In a matter of seconds, the trap closed in on the fallen predator. Thick metallic tendrils, laced with high-powered electrical currents, ensnared him, rendering his strength useless. He struggled, but the human tech had already short-circuited his bio-armor, rendering him helpless. This wasn't a battle of strength anymore. It was a battle of wits. And Earth had prepared for the day they would face the predators. Across the world, the predators were learning the same painful lesson. A dozen more were caught, picked off one by one, as humans unleashed their ingenuity. The predators were used to tracking their prey, hunting down the weak, the slow, the frightened. But these humans were nothing like that. They were not afraid of death. They were not running. Instead, they were adapting, using the land, their own technology, and a deep primal understanding of survival to wage war on the galaxy's most lethal species. By the time the predators realized what was happening, it was too late. They had underestimated Earth in every possible way. While the human military adapted their tactics on the fly, shifting from ambushes to rapid strikes, the world's civilian population quickly joined the effort. Scientists and engineers, long ignored by the predators who had assumed them weak, joined the front lines, creating weapons of opportunity out of everyday materials. The predators' advanced weaponry, their superior strength, their superior intelligence, all of it meant nothing when they were trapped in a web of human resourcefulness. They were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. Var, the leader of the predator fleet, watched in disbelief as his forces crumbled. His warriors were powerful, trained for battle across galaxies, but they were not prepared for a fight against a species with the audacity to challenge them. His best warriors, the ones who had stood at the top of the predator hierarchy for centuries, were being caught in traps, incapacitated, and even killed by the hands of humans. He snarled, frustrated and confused. "What is this?" he growled, slamming his fist onto the control panel. These humans should be easy prey. He could hear the panic spreading through his ranks. The predators had always thrived on fear, but now it was the predators who were afraid. They had never encountered a species that did not flee at the sight of them. The more they fought, the more they realized just how dangerous this world was. Earth was no longer a hunting ground, it was a battlefield. As the day wore on, Var's frustration grew. He ordered his fleet to mobilize, to launch a full assault on Earth's surface, to crush these humans once and for all. But even as the orders were given, Var felt a gnawing sense of doubt deep within his chest. He had seen his best warriors fall, had seen them trapped in ways no predator should ever be caught. These humans were something more than mere prey. The predators were no longer in control. They were losing. And the realization hit them like a cold shock. As night began to fall, the predators regrouped, determined to finish the fight. But in every corner of the world, humans were waiting. They were moving faster, thinking smarter, and adapting quicker than their invaders ever had. The predators had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated Earth. And now the hunt had shifted. The predators had become the prey. As the predators prepare for their next strike, they discover something even more terrifying. A human weapon, one they never saw coming. Its impact would send shockwaves through their entire fleet, a weapon designed to not just defend Earth, but to send a message to every predator in the galaxy. The predators had never encountered an enemy like this. Their once confident hunt had turned into a nightmarish game of cat and mouse. Every attempt to subdue humanity seemed to backfire. Each carefully planned attack met with unexpected resistance. They had underestimated Earth, and now they were beginning to feel the consequences. No matter where they struck, no matter how many they sent, the humans fought back with a relentless, almost instinctive fury. And this time, it wasn't just the soldiers on the front lines. Every corner of the world had become a battlefield. Var stared at the holographic map in front of him, his sharp gaze scanning the locations of his fallen warriors. More of his fleet had been lost in the past few hours than he could recall in all his years of hunting. The humans had adapted faster than he thought possible, using their environment, their weapons, and, most disturbingly, their cunning to trap his best fighters. "They're learning," Var muttered, his voice thick with frustration. "How are they learning so quickly?" One of the younger predators spoke up, his voice laced with uncertainty. "It's not just their weapons, Var. They're using the terrain, the very land itself, against us. This world, it fights back." Var's eyes narrowed. He had expected Earth to be weak, a mere stepping stone to a larger conquest. But this planet was different. The humans were not just fighting to survive, they were fighting to win. "Enough of your doubts," Var snarled, his tone cold and dangerous. "Prepare for the next phase of the assault. We will crush them." But even as he barked orders, something in his mind gnawed at him. His warriors, seasoned and deadly, were being outsmarted. This was not how a hunt was supposed to go. He was used to prey running, to civilizations breaking under the weight of his assault. But the humans didn't break. They adapted. They fought. Back on the ground, the humans were preparing for the predators' next move. They had learned quickly, too, what it took to survive. While the predators focused on brute force, humanity had relied on strategy. Their traps were growing more sophisticated, their tactics more coordinated. The predators' strength meant little when faced with an enemy that didn't fight conventionally. The human resistance, once a scattered collection of military units and civilians, had become a well-oiled machine. Special forces, scientists, and engineers had joined forces to create new technologies, new weapons. They knew the predator's strengths, claws that could slice through steel, eyes that could see in the dark. But they also knew the predator's weakness, their overconfidence. It was a dangerous game, and one they could not afford to lose. But the humans were ready. Near a mountain range, a small group of soldiers had set up a new kind of trap, a makeshift electromagnetic field that would disrupt the predator's high-tech armor. It wasn't perfect, but it would be enough. When the predators arrived, as they always did, they would be met with a storm of explosives and specialized devices designed to take them down. The humans had learned to predict the predators' movements, using patterns gleaned from the past attacks. Every strike the predators made only brought them closer to their doom. They didn't understand the planet, the humans, or the relentless spirit they were up against. As dusk settled over the horizon, the first signs of the predators' next assault appeared. Their massive ships, gleaming with malice, entered the atmosphere. But this time, the humans were ready. The ground shook with the force of multiple explosions, as the predators' landing zones were quickly surrounded by traps, electromagnetic coils, minefields, and sudden, explosive blasts. The predators tried to respond to counter, but their systems faltered as the electromagnetic pulses disabled their shields. They had walked into a carefully set snare. The first predator to land in the designated zone fell quickly, trapped in a field of jagged spikes. Its death was swift, its body torn apart by the traps humans had set. The predators above were unaware of what had happened below, their communication lines jammed and scrambled by the human tech. "We've got them," one soldier whispered, watching through a scope. His hand tightened around his rifle. "They're in our world now, and they're not leaving." The predators began to fall, one by one, as the humans executed their strategy with terrifying precision. The predators' claws and brute force could not compete with the traps they had set. Every misstep was met with deadly consequences, and every victory the predators thought they'd won was immediately erased. Var could only watch helpless, as his forces crumbled under the onslaught. His warriors had been outplayed, outwitted, and now outnumbered. As the last of his warriors faltered, Var issued one final command, his voice trembling with rage and fear. "Send in the king. If they think they can outsmart us, they haven't seen anything yet." The Predator King's descent into Earth's atmosphere was like a storm tearing through the skies. His ship, a hulking mass of weaponry and raw power, crashed into the surface with the force of a small moon. Earth's defenses were insignificant to him. This was his domain now. The predators had failed, and he would make sure they understood why they had been wrong to challenge Earth. His mission was simple: annihilate humanity, and show the galaxy that nothing, no species, was a match for the predators. He emerged from his craft, towering over the land before him. His claws, sharper than any metal, gleamed in the dim light as he surveyed the devastation around him. His eyes scanned the terrain with surgical precision, calculating the destruction he would unleash. The human resistance was fractured. Their traps had been effective, but their weapons were primitive. No technology or tactic could stand up to him. The Predator King was unlike any of his kin. Where they were driven by instinct, he was guided by intellect and experience. He had lived through hundreds of battles, his body scarred by wars fought and won. He knew fear. He had caused it. Now it would be Earth's turn. But as his massive frame stomped forward, he felt something that made him pause. A ripple in the air, a hum that carried through the Earth itself. The ground beneath his feet seemed to tremble, and for the first time since he had arrived, he wondered if Earth might not be as weak as he had assumed. It was too late to question now. A sudden burst of energy shot from the ground, striking him with the force of 100 guns. His armor absorbed the shock, but the force was enough to stagger him. He growled in irritation, swinging his clawed hands in anger. But as the dust settled, he saw it. Humans emerging from the shadows, as if they had been waiting for him all along. They were not running, not fleeing. They were organizing, preparing for something much bigger. The Predator King's mind raced. He could smell the fear in the air, but it wasn't his fear. It was theirs, an organized terror that could only come from the realization that this fight was not going to end the way he had expected. A human soldier, clad in crude but effective armor, stepped forward, holding a strange device in his hand. He activated it with a simple press of a button, and the air around the Predator King buzzed with an unfamiliar energy. The Predator King roared in pain as his systems began to glitch and malfunction. His enhanced senses wavered. The electromagnetic field surrounding him scrambled his advanced technology, disorienting him. This wasn't a fight for survival anymore. This was a battle for dominance. He swung his claws at the nearest humans, but they scattered, darting into the cover of the ruined landscape, and the Predator King realized with growing frustration that he was no longer in control. Every step he took was met with another trap. Explosions erupted around him, deafening him, and human soldiers continued to strike, firing high-powered weapons with pinpoint accuracy. Var had been right to bring him. The predators needed a true warrior to face the humans. But what neither of them had anticipated was this. The humans fought with a desperation that made them more dangerous than the predators had ever encountered. Their will to survive was unbreakable. The Predator King's anger surged. He was no longer dealing with prey. He was facing an adversary who fought with the same ferocity he had once commanded. And for the first time in his life, he felt doubt creeping into his mind. But there was no turning back now. With a roar of fury, he unleashed his full strength, tearing through the human resistance with brutal efficiency. His claws raked through the earth, his strength shaking the very ground beneath him. But the humans were relentless, striking from the shadows, setting up new traps, launching deadly projectiles with precision. Every time he thought he had broken through, another wave of resistance hit him, pushing him further into a corner he had never expected to find himself in. His pride, his arrogance, everything that had made him a predator, was slipping away, replaced by the growing realization that he had miscalculated. These humans were not the weaklings he had expected. They were fighters, relentless and adaptive, with no intention of surrendering. The Predator King's battle raged on, but as he turned to strike once more, he saw something that stopped him dead in his tracks. A massive, unfamiliar weapon being raised by the humans, its power crackling in the air. The Predator King's instincts screamed at him to retreat, but his pride pushed him forward. The humans had shown they could outthink him. But could they outlast him? The Predator King's roar echoed through the wasteland as he charged forward, his massive form crashing through debris and scorched earth. His fury burned hotter than ever before. He had underestimated these humans, and now he was paying the price. His armor, though the most advanced of his kind, was starting to show signs of wear. The electromagnetic field had torn through his systems, and now he was battling more than just humans. He was battling the very planet itself. Humanity had unleashed its full fury, and the Predator King was starting to understand the weight of his mistake. He swiped his claws through the air, but the humans danced around him with terrifying speed, evading every strike. Behind every movement, every retreat, there was a strategy. Every trap they set, every gun they fired, was calculated. They didn't just want to survive, they wanted to win. From his position, the Predator King could see the carnage his troops had caused. But it was different now. The humans weren't just fighting to defend, they were fighting to reclaim something that had been taken from them long ago. The arrogance of the Predators had become their greatest weakness. Var's transmission came through, breaking through the noise of battle. "Retreat is not an option, King," he growled, his voice sharp with frustration. "Finish them, or we lose everything." The Predator King snarled, clenching his fists. "I know," he hissed, "but these humans are not like the others. They adapt too quickly." Even as he spoke, he could feel another wave of human resistance closing in from all sides. From the shadows, hidden snipers unleashed a barrage of fire. In response, the Predator King launched himself into the air, his claws slicing through the air as he landed with a thunderous crash. He had to end this, before the humans did what he could never have imagined. Beneath him, a loud rumble filled the air. His instincts screamed warning, but it was too late. The ground trembled violently. From below, an enormous pulse of energy surged upward, sending a shockwave that rattled the Predator King's armor and sent him stumbling backward. A human-made weapon, something he had never seen before, rose from the earth. Its design was alien, but its purpose was clear. The Predator King gritted his teeth as the weapon powered up. It was not just a tool of destruction, it was a message. The humans were telling him that their fight was not just about defense, it was about reclaiming their world. The Predator King watched as the weapon powered up, sending arcs of energy into the sky, and he knew they had something new, a tool that could tip the balance of this war. He wasn't the only one feeling the shift. His remaining warriors were faltering. The human forces had begun to organize at an unprecedented pace, their once scattered resistance now a formidable front. The Predators were disoriented and bleeding. Their once supreme confidence was fading under the pressure of a planet that refused to break. Var's transmission cut through the chaos again, this time full of panic. "King, our forces are dwindling. We cannot sustain this assault any longer. The humans, they've figured out our weaknesses." The Predator King's eyes narrowed. He could feel it now, the growing panic among his ranks. His own soldiers were starting to fall back, retreating from human-made horrors they didn't understand. For the first time in his life, the Predator King felt a true sense of fear. It was not the fear of death. He had faced that countless times. It was the fear of being outmatched, outclassed, and beaten at their own game. The tide of battle had shifted. The predators, once invincible, were now the hunted. The king's mind raced, but there was no easy solution. He could feel the ground underfoot change with every step, as though Earth itself was rejecting him. The humans were more than just a threat. They were the inevitable force of nature that no predator could outrun. And then, as if to seal his fate, a bright flash illuminated the sky, and the massive human weapon fired again. This time, the blast wasn't just a warning, it was a direct hit. The Predator King staggered, his systems glitching and sparking. He could feel his strength draining, his once mighty body buckling under the strain. He looked around, and his gaze fell upon the humans, their resistance, their resolve, their strength. This wasn't a battle. This was a reckoning. With the Predator King on the verge of collapse, the human forces closed in. But just as it seemed victory was within reach, the skies darkened, and a new wave of predators appeared, each one more deadly than the last. The humans had won the battle, but the war was far from over, and the predators had a final, terrifying plan. The sky crackled with the raw energy of battle. The predators, their once mighty fleet now fractured and broken, gathered for their last stand. The Predator King, battered and scarred, stood at the front, his eyes burning with defiance. Earth had proven to be more than they had ever expected, but this wasn't over. The galaxy's most feared hunters would not go down quietly. They would either crush humanity or be destroyed in the process. The ground beneath them rumbled as the final wave of predators descended, each ship a fortress of advanced weaponry, each soldier a lethal force in their own right. Var's orders had been clear: eradicate Earth's resistance or perish trying. The humans, exhausted from days of relentless battle, knew this was their breaking point. They had pushed the predators to the edge, but there were still hundreds of them, hundreds of creatures who knew nothing but victory. The humans had weapons, strategy, and courage, but they were outnumbered. In the distance, a human general stood on a cracked ridge, overlooking the battlefield. His eyes locked onto the Predator King, whose presence alone seemed to send waves of dread through the air. But the general wasn't afraid. Not anymore. "We've come this far," the general muttered to himself. "Now we finish this." Human forces surged forward, a coordinated strike unlike anything the predators had faced. They weren't simply reacting anymore. They were dictating the terms of the fight. Snipers took positions, special forces infiltrated enemy lines, and the makeshift weapons humanity had crafted over the course of the war began to hum with deadly precision. The first shots rang out, piercing the air with a crack that echoed across the battlefield. The predators, caught off guard by the sudden ferocity of the assault, fought back with everything they had. Their advanced weaponry lit up the skies, lasers and projectiles slashing through the air. But the humans adapted, staying just one step ahead, using every inch of the terrain to their advantage. The Predator King roared as his forces began to engage with the human soldiers. His strength was unmatched, his rage even more so. He tore through human defenses with brutal efficiency, his claws raking through armor and flesh. But the humans didn't retreat. They kept coming, relentless, their eyes locked on the prize. Human tanks, modified to withstand the Predator's weaponry, rolled onto the field, firing back with heavy artillery that shook the earth. For every Predator they took down, two more seemed to appear, each one more ferocious than the last. Yet the humans fought on. It was clear, this wasn't about survival anymore. This was about something deeper. This was about freedom. As the battle raged on, the tide began to turn in subtle ways. The predators had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, and now they were beginning to feel the weight of that mistake. The humans were more than a threat. They were a force that could not be ignored. Each strike, each ambush, was a message to the predators. Earth was no longer theirs to claim. The Predator King fought with everything he had. his rage growing as his forces faltered. His claws met flesh, his roar shook the air, but with every passing minute, his army weakened. The humans had the upper hand now, and they were closing in. But just when victory seemed within their grasp, the sky darkened. From above, a massive predator warship descended, a weapon unlike anything the humans had seen before. Its size dwarfed everything in sight, and its weapons were capable of devastating the battlefield in a single blast. "This is it," the general whispered. One final push. He gave the order. The humans readied their last-ditch weapon, an energy pulse powerful enough to disrupt the predator warship systems. They knew the risk. If they failed, Earth would fall, and the predators would claim their final victory. The pulse fired. A brilliant flash of light tore through the air, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The predator warship's shields flickered and faltered. The Predator King, sensing the shift, turned to face the final blow, but it was too late. The energy pulse struck true. The warship systems overloaded, and it began to disintegrate, crashing to the ground in a fiery explosion. The Predator's final hope was gone. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the remaining Predators scattered, their will to fight broken. The humans had won. Against all odds, against a force they had no right to challenge, they had defeated the galaxy's most feared hunters. But as the general watched the battlefield, he knew this victory came at a cost. The war was over, but it had changed everything. Earth had proven it was no longer a world to be conquered. It was a world that would rise to defend itself, no matter who threatened it. And as the last of the predators fled, a quiet voice echoed across the planet, a reminder that the battle may have ended, but the war for the galaxy had only just begun.